Hello everyone and welcome. We are live today with a very special Comp Cape Rework stream. We have had a couple of these as the months have gone by, but I think this is a very important one because we actually have visual stuff to show, which is very exciting. But what that may be, who knows? But
can you call it art?
We can call it art, yeah, of course we can.
Good.
Absolutely, we can call it art. So for the start of the stream, I have Mod Breezy and Mod Jack joining us, and we'll be joined later on in the stream by two mods. We'll introduce them when they get on the couch with us, and then we'll go through it. But I feel like we kind of need to touch base and use this opportunity while we're here to kind of touch upon Comp Cape Rework, hammer out a few important topics I think we want to get out here there, and then we can kind of get into the design stuff.
There's a few questions that just keep coming up.
So before we do that, because I like to have fun, World 70 right now, if you are on World 70 and you decide to go to somewhere like Aslan's Workshop where it hides your familiar might get sent, will get sent to somewhere called Yak Island. So if we swap to the game screen just very quickly, that's what we have so far. So imagine all of your familiars are sent to this little place called Yak Island. So if you want to see your familiars there, they might just appear. So I just thought, why not show it? Because why not? Anyway, let's go back to the camera. God, poor familiars. And let's just jump into it. So a little while ago, we released a spreadsheet about Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 and all this stuff. Can we just get into it straight away and mention, first of all the requirements on there are not final, right?
Yeah. So you guys put together some example requirements that were going to be on Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 comp. People are saying, well, why is that? It doesn't make sense to be on Tier 3. That's great. Give us that feedback, please, because we're constantly tweaking stuff and moving stuff around.
Yeah, it was by no means a final list. It was just there basically to get verification from the players. We want people to tell us if they think some requirement should move up or down or whatever.
Yeah, it's best to make it like what we're most interested in is like a coherent argument as to why it should be. Like you've said this is easy, but it takes 5,000 hours. That's a good argument for why it shouldn't be at Tier 1, right? Like.
All right, so are we at this point now where have we decided everything? Like, has everything been decided now?
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about some topics today, right? We're still trying to make our mind up on them. In terms of practical development, like we need to actually make progress on the project, right? Otherwise, it'll never come out. And some things are easy to change and some things are hard to change. So, for example, one of the most controversial things is where's Reaper going to go? And we still don't have a final answer on that, and we're not going to have a final answer on that for a while. But that is the work of 5 minutes to change for us. So we don't. It's not holding the project up. We need to get that right. We need to get agreement. Maybe we need to introduce new systems or something to try and solve that problem. But it's not holding the project up. Whereas other issues like what's the interface that Tom was working on today, like being able to select which benefits do and don't go on your cape.
Okay,
like
so
that requires a lot. Yeah, exactly. Customizing the benefits that go on the cape. I mean, as far as I can see, that's a totally non-controversial aspect of the update. Everyone's happy to that sounds great. Of course, I can have all these benefits and choose which ones I have.
Just to take a step back, just to bring people into who might not be aware, this is essentially taking passive benefits and taking benefits from certain capes and making them passive across the slots,
exactly.
Correct?
And you'll be able to put those on. I think whether it's any cape or not can still be changed, but that there will be an interface that will allow you to choose which benefits you have. I mean, so we can start development on that because that's actually quite a lot of work that needs doing. So we're getting started on the less controversial, more work-intensive aspects of the update, so they're just done. And then the much more controversial stuff like what's at Tier 3, so we've got the system where you'll unlock stats. There's been some talk about how exactly you unlock those stats. Again, once we've got the stat system working, we wouldn't do this, but if we suddenly decided, you need Tier 3 lore to get the stats, that's 2 minutes work to do. So if someone somehow came in and said, you know what, actually, what this rework really needs is this huge change to where you get stats, which from a player point of view is a huge deal, 2 minutes work for us. So, I mean, as it is, Tier 1 combat makes sense for the stats. But.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about stats, all right. What's happening to quote-unquote best in slot stats? So obviously, in the current game, Completion's cape right now is the best cape for stats when it comes to magic bonus and so on and so forth. So what are we doing with the stats?
I think there's been some confusion over this because many people have pointed out that the stat total in the design, if you look at the current live design for the rework, the total stats you can get is lower than what you currently get from combat. and we don't want that to be the case. We can't tell you exactly what the stats are going to be right now because, so the point of the new system is you get these passive stats from having Tier 1 combat unlocked. That's the current design. I'm emphasizing that every time because I want to make it clear that these things can change. I don't think that one should change, but everything is subject to change. But you get these passive stats from Tier 1 comp. They will then stack with whatever cape you're wearing. So depending on whether you're wearing the max cape or the kiln cape, you've either got lower hybrid stats or higher like single style stats. So then we need to basically decide which of those two is at comp. Is one slightly higher, is one slightly lower? Like we need to figure that out. But it's not our intention that there's a big nerf. We just need to figure out how to get parity with the current system.
Cool, okay. And also, I think we kind of want to dive into, I mean, why? Why are we doing this rework? I think like we kind of want to touch bases to that, and I feel like it's a good opportunity to do so. So why have we now decided this is what we want to do? And
yeah, one of the most common bits of feedback we get is the whole point of this rework is to get rid of Reaper, or the whole point of this rework is to fix PVM stats, or well, what's the other one? There's another one as well that keeps coming.
The whole point of this rework is because of Reddit.
Yeah, and like everyone thinks that there's some specific bit of whining which has triggered this rework, and if we're not like focusing entirely on that aspect, then for some reason we're missing the point of the rework. But that's why we laid out in every document that we did, we laid out the 4 priorities for the rework, which are: it's a problem that people are being forced to comp when they don't want to because they only want the stats. It's a problem that certain pieces of content have been put on slightly arbitrarily. It's a problem that
Livid Farm, as an example, Mage Training Arena.
yeah,
and
like
stuff like how you can,
yeah.
so inconsistency then, basically how you can have some pieces of content in, but
yeah,
then there's other pieces of content that come out
that just aren't on there.
Player on Farms, for example, where it was only the music tracks, that could have been comp content realistically.
And then there's a problem that affects us, and I think for most players, especially most compers, won't see this problem because almost by definition, anyone who's comped is like is enjoying the content and is it thinks it's great, right? I don't want to overemphasize that, but anyone who's comped sort of thinks comp must be okay because if they didn't, they wouldn't do it, right? So an aspect that we miss is that affects us that won't necessarily affect compers, and so they won't necessarily be aware of it, is players who sort of look at comp and go, you know what, that's just unattainable. And that's not to say that we want to make it easy, but that we want to make it so there's much more of a clear path to get there. So we're not looking at nerfing comp to make it easier, but we do want to make essentially the path to comp be more visible and more attainable.
Cool, okay. So we obviously, a little while back, mentioned about names for these capes. Stuff like True or Insane kind of come up. So why are we calling them the True or Insane capes if we're not putting everything on them?
It's mostly just labeling. Again, that's a really straightforward thing to change. We wanted to start giving them labeling because I think you pointed out like a lot of people are finding tier confusing.
Yeah.
Calling it tier 1, tier 2 makes the whole thing sound more complicated than it is. If we say, oh, comp is tier 1 and trim comp is tier 2, like comp and trim comp make more sense to people. They understand what those mean. Tier 1 and tier 2 don't really mean anything.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to assign them some clear labels so that you could tell like roughly what this was.
It's very much a working name because we don't have a name for what those could be right now. Like in game, you know them as comp and then trim comp, and that's it. Those are essentially tier 1 and tier 2. I think we actually have an image for this.
Yeah, can we bring up image 1, please? So what you'll see on screen in just a few moments. So what have we got here?
So that's basically the current system. In game right now, tier 1 is essentially Comp Cape. So you can see that what we've done here is we have categorized it into its own, category. So you see like in lore, for example, all quest is currently part of Comp. 99 is an actual 120 is part of Comp. Reaper is part of Comp, as an example. Tier 2 is then Trim Comp, which again has things like Castle Wars on it, 100% Telos. And then if we go to the next image, this is the new system. So it hasn't actually changed that much. We're just adding on an extra tier. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're currently calling Comp Cape, True Comp, and then Insane Comp. And we're shifting some of the requirements around. That's why we put out a spreadsheet a couple of weeks ago, just to show off basically what each cape will require and get some feedback on that. So we're attaching capes to it too, but it's not too different from how the current system works.
So just to clarify, because I think people are getting confused, I think the perception is this is the confirmed requirements. This is using the current live, as in the current requirements we have to get certain things, and then if the tier system was in, this is how it would work. So I feel like that's important to clarify for people watching here, because I think they're getting a little bit confused when they see, for example, oh, Reaper's tier 1 combat, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, this is just purely an example as to how it looks.
Someone just made an interesting comment in the chat, which is why are you saying you're not changing it when you are obviously changing it by adding an extra tier? And I think what you mean is like we're not completely revising the concept
this isn't
of what
a completely
comp
new
was.
this isn't a completely new system. It's a layer on top of another.
The main difference in the new system is there's an extra tier, and also you can get sub bits of comp. You can divide it up in chunks, which is what I mentioned earlier about it being accessible.
Those categories exist in game right now. When you go to your achievements tab in game, you've got mini games, you've got skills, and they're all separated into farming and whatever. That's basically all we're doing is doing a little bit of cleanup, really.
Cool. All right. So that's we kind of wanted to use what we have already in game and kind of show you how it could work as an example. So just thought we'd give you a heads up on that. So, I mean, just from that, I mean, it does look complicated and can be a bit confusing. So, I mean, is that been some of the perception in the office, or?
I mean, that's a lot of feedback that has come back, and I think when we talk about adding 15 capes to it, people look at that number and say, they say what the hell. When they see all these sort of boxes and stuff, they say what the hell. Because right now, when you look at it in game, you click on the completionist tab in the achievements, and it just gives you a bunch of requirements. Whereas what we've done here and in our documents is split them up. So we've said all the sort of questing lower achievements go in this category, all of the skilling ones go in this category. We're just making it clearer for people to see in what parts of the game that content actually lies. And then what Jack was speaking about earlier about giving people clearer goals, we're giving capes to those categories. So
some of those categories.
Yeah, to some of them, sorry. So it's not too much of a shift, I'd say, but it's not hard to see why people would get complicated. It's not hard to see why people would think it's complicated.
I do. I mean, it does. It's very overwhelming. I mean, that's safe to say. But I think that's where it comes from. I guess the clarification of showing it. I think when it's in the hands, it might be easy to pick up. But when you see it there, it can be a little bit.
We just got off mining and smithing, and we had this problem a lot.
Yeah.
So I would say there's nothing here anywhere near as complicated as mining. Mining is simpler than smithing was. So this is the rework skills, right? Smithing is much more complicated than mining. Mining is much more complicated than the comp rework. And what we found in practice was that people, this was even true with developers, reading through the documentation, people just went, I don't really get this. What's this for? What are these opportunities? I don't really know anything about this. When they tried it out in practice, it all made perfect sense. Less so with smithing, I'm perfectly prepared to admit, but that's kind of my point. This is simpler than smithing and simpler than mining was. I think when people say it's complicated, there's actually two different points that are being made there, and some people mean one and some the other. One is effectively like, not necessarily I don't understand this, but this is very confusing. Like, they might understand it, but it seems unnecessarily complex and confusing. They'd rather have something simpler. The other is that I think a lot of people mean it includes elements they think are unnecessary. So why does tier 3? Why, like, some people will say the only point of this rework is to get Reaper off comp. So just get Reaper off comp and ship it. Why are you bothering with tier 3? But of course there are other people who are saying don't take Reaper off comp. What you need to do is add in True Trim, which has 5.4 bill on it. Why just do that and ship it? So we've got lots of different groups of people, all of whom want something different, and all of them think that only the thing that they want should be fixed. And everything else should be left alone.
I think it's important just to clarify, like, essentially it's not just, of course, the one cape. It's, in essence, lesser capes building up to the bigger capes. Yeah. And then from that, they're going to be stepping stones to get there. Mm-hmm. So you'll do, like, your medium stuff at tier 1, as an example, hard stuff at tier 2, and then your elite stuff at tier 3 in regards to the content itself. So I think that's obviously important to clarify. While we're at it, though, so obviously, leading on from what we just talked about, we mentioned about comp being split in or divided into subcategories. Why are the requirements not being determined by specific parts of the community? For example, let's say 200 million all for skillers and 4K tell us for combat and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's worth noting with, like, the audience for each part of the game is different. And I think if we only listen to the elite PVM community for what they want for every single cape, we're ignoring the other 70, 80, 90% of people who are going to go for comp. If we listen to the people who want 5.4 bill on it, which is around 540 people right now, that's not a lot. Like that's a lot of people who have 540. But overall, that's not a lot of people. If we only listen to them and then do what they want for that specific point, we're ignoring other people. On the other hand, if we only listen to people who say, let's just remove Reaper, I don't like group content, or it's too hard for me, we're then ignoring everyone else who does want a challenge. So it's not a case of listening to one small community on either side. It's a case of listening to everyone and weighing everyone's opinions and trying to find a middle ground, a compromise that can please as many people as we can.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that because
It's very hard.
And of course, balancing, when we say as many people as we can, we don't mean necessarily like the raw majority, in the sense of like, if you're not a comper and you don't care about comp,
yeah,
you're not necessarily the target audience for comp.
exactly,
So
yeah.
I don't want to say your opinion is less valuable, but that is kind of what I mean. Like,
Yeah, like
comp
here's-
is content for a certain type of player, and
Yeah.
we want that type of player to enjoy it.
Yeah, here's the player base. Here's people who are comped are going to comp.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
here's the people who can do 4K telos.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
Cool. Excuse me. Got just rattling off here. Why is tier 3 brackets insane comp so easy? So many people already meet these requirements. Perception is
we
it
get
seems
this
like they
feedback a lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
it seems like they meet it.
they're like, what? 1K telos? What? Everyone's got 1K telos. Because someone tweeted me like, everyone's got 1K telos. Most of this feedback is coming from quite a limited view of what the player base has got. Like, the majority of people do not meet the requirements for what we've penciled in as like tier 3, like 120 all. We penciled in 1K telos, but we're considering changing that. But say for sake of argument, 1K telos. Like, most people do not have 1K telos. Most PVMers don't have 1K telos. It's a fairly, as we've said, like a fairly elite skillers have 120 all. Elite PVMers have 1K telos. I think what those people are asking really is, for the elite, for the sort of 500 to 1,000 players who are absolutely...
Do you want another number from December? Because I did a day stream in December, which was how many people had certain enrages. So at December 2018, there is a data stream coming up in the near future where I'll bring this up again and we'll hopefully have different numbers. But at the time, 4 months ago, there were 1,100 people with 1K enrage and 17 people with 4K enrage. So as an interesting factor...
And that's what I mean. See, we've got 500 people who've got 200 million. We've got 1,000 people who've got 1K telos. Those players, and I'm not saying they're wrong to want this, but those players want more challenges. They want harder things. They want a cape that recognises that they've done something that no one else can do. And so I don't have a problem with them arguing for this, but they want those requirements on comp, so that only they will have it. But then that says, well, then we've got, if we put, if tier 3 combat requires 4K telos and tier 3 skilling requires 200 million all, then the cross-section of people who have both is hardly anybody. And there's nothing wrong with having aspirational content in the game, but we need to set that at a place where a reasonable number of people can go for it. That doesn't mean the majority.
I'm not going to invest so much time into 5.4 and then I have to invest so much time to 4K.
Exactly, right?
Just
the sheer number of players we have who are even capable of doing both. Bearing in mind 5.4 bill, people can be blasé about it and say, oh, anybody can do that. But it's not true. It takes a certain amount of dedication and patience to get 200 mil all, right? Not everyone can do that, even though it sounds conceptually simple. And not everyone can get 4K telos. And very few people can do both. So we can't, like, as developers, we can't, I don't know, I would go so far to say not just we can't, but we shouldn't devote development time to something that, say, 15 people can do. I don't think that's the right use of our time.
It's fair. There's obviously, it's a very contentious topic. Of course it is. Because
now, all that said, I would say we've seen a clear desire here for, especially from the elite PVM community, they want something that recognises their accomplishments, and they're not getting that from comp. And I'm arguing kind of we can't put that on comp, but that doesn't mean that we've ignored that point. It sounds to me like there's a separate project there for, elite PVM achievements. Again, Duo Virago comes up a lot and that kind of thing. They want recognition for their accomplishments, and that sounds to me like a perfectly good separate project. I can't promise it, obviously, but like I think that's the correct way to respond to that feedback, is not to put that stuff on comp, but to put that stuff somewhere else so it can be recognised in its own right.
And obviously we have to get into the contentious point, which is Reaper. I mean, what's happening with Reaper at the moment? Well, what are we doing with Reaper?
We've gone back and forth on this so many times because there's two really important arguments I think that are here, right? The first is it's the Comp Cape. It should require you to do everything. Simple, straightforward, makes sense. It seems obvious if you just put it in those terms. But the other is like not just comping, like the play style ethos behind comp, regardless of whether the Comp Cape came out. I'm going to play RuneScape, I'm going to do everything, predates EOC and it predates the difficult bossing that is represented by Reaper effectively, or the problematic parts of Reaper. Is a play style in RuneScape which is, I mean, it sounds silly because it's quite old now, but it's actually new to RuneScape from a certain perspective. Like playing in that way, you know, there was a point where the hardest thing in the game was Jad, right? And the idea of this extraordinarily difficult content that not everyone can do, and I say extraordinary, to some people Telos is extraordinarily difficult content, right? So
Well, I mean, the biggest Reaper problem is, and the chat will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Solak, in regards to what stopped a lot of people getting their comps redone, was Solak, because you still have to find a team who can do it.
Yeah,
and,
you've got to be good, and you need to know.
It comes to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the other. Yes, that's the other thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is you're being required to do something which almost sort of wasn't there when you signed up in the first place. You signed up to play RuneScape. You're like, I love RuneScape. I love, you know, whatever it is you love about RuneScape. The chances are it wasn't originally difficult group bossing. So, and when that content was made, we made it with the full knowledge that it was effectively not for everybody. Like, hard bosses are there as a specific kind of content for a specific kind of player. And then the problem is that then intersects very poorly with comp, the vision for what the Comp Cape is, which is it's for someone who can do everything. So then we've got the player who wants recognition for sort of doing everything in game, and then we've got almost a different audience for whom difficult high-level bossing has been created for. And that's left us in essentially just a really difficult position. And honestly, we don't have a concrete good solution to it. I think in terms of the long-term philosophy of the game, I think I would say if we're going to stick with this philosophy of comp is everything, like comp means you have to do everything, then we can't have content that most players can't do. Or, but what I mean by that is something like Elite Dungeons have a story mode for exactly that purpose. Elite Dungeons is proper content. It's hard for a certain type of player, but then we have a story mode so everyone can go through and do it. So maybe we need to do that for future bosses to make sure that this problem doesn't come up again. Now, that isn't something we can fix with this project. But that seems to me to be the long-term solution to it, because then we can have both. You have to complete everything, but you don't necessarily have to complete it on its hardest difficulty setting.
It's crazy to try and take it all in, honestly. But so I'll go for a couple of questions, and then that'll take us up to halfway through the stream, which gives us perfect time then to get onto the arty side of things. So, I mean, why haven't we done anything polling-wise for this update at all?
We are still planning to poll stuff. You're going to talk about this a bit later with the art, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
The thing that makes this project particularly difficult to poll is the question of who gets to vote. Like, some parts of the comp community will tell you that only compers should vote. Is that true? How do we weight the two, right? Like, if we run a majority poll, and we say, should we make comp easier? We fully expect, and I think probably the community would expect that poll to pass. That's certainly what we saw in the polling that we did. We sort of did some polling to help design the project.
Which was for compers.
We split the results into compers and non-compers, and the non-compers consistently voted for things to be easier, and the non-compers, not overwhelmingly so, but they voted less than the non-compers to make things easier. So if we ran just a simple majority poll on whether or not any aspect of comp should be made easier, should we take Castle Wars off it, should we take Reaper off it, that poll would pass. Even though the majority of the people that voted in that poll probably won't ever get comp. And I think the comp community could rightfully say, well, it's not really fair. Like, why should the majority who don't want this content determine what that content consists of? But of course, if we restrict the poll to only compers, that's also not fair. Because of course the people that have done the content would vote to keep the content. Of course they would. So how is that fair? Because all the people who might comp, except for Castle Wars, where's their say? So actually, like, polling doesn't really solve that problem for us, because we already know how the two communities feel on the subject. The question is, how do we weight them? Is it, oh, should every comp get 2 votes? Well, then it's just kind of arbitrary, right? Like, it's not really a question that can be solved by polling because it won't make anyone happy. Like the result, however the result comes back, however we set the poll up, no one will be happy with the result. It'll just be like 52%, everyone's angry.
I mean, what I've seen just from this chat is it goes both ways. Some people agree with you, some people don't agree with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it kind of proves that fact. I mean, it's not a topic that is 100% decisive, and that's unfortunate. But
my preferred approach would always be, if we've got this impossible situation where 2 different communities want 2 different things, is to somehow find a way to like break that apart, so rather than one thing trying to serve 2 audiences that want fundamentally different things, let's have 2 pieces of content. Like, if story mode would be an example of that, of like, we want a hard boss, but most people can't do it. Okay, well, we'll give them a story mode. Problem solved. Now we don't have the issue of, well, no one can do this content because it's too difficult.
So before we go into the art section, while we got you on the stream, want to talk about Stone Spirits if we can. And where we are at before we
So we've got Mod Shogun, who is now a developer. Congratulations to him. He in his content trial, he designed an agility minigame. No, was it agility? It was originally a hunter minigame. And then we demanded that he redesign it for thieving. No, he proposed a thieving minigame, and then we demanded that he on the spot redesign it for hunter.
Nice.
And he did. And then we demanded that he on the spot redesign it for constitution. And he did. And he did a really good job. So good for him. Anyway, he's got some time to work on Stone Spirits improvements. So we've got a design. We've got a design that's sort of it's not in a fit state to show anyone because it's too scruffy and we're all busy stressing about comp. But we have a Stone Spirit design. He is currently looking into analytics data on what the sources of Stone Spirits are, particularly the least valuable ones. We're trying to see if we can analyze concrete patterns from the data and see where they're coming from. It might be that we can make some simple fixes to some drop tables to just like, if we say there's one drop table which is dropping the vast majority of the least valuable Stone Spirit, we can just fix that. But we also have a bunch more fixes that we can make which are more time consuming. So we want to make Stone Spirits more convenient to use. One of the ideas we proposed was that when the Stone Spirit is used, it auto sends the ore to the bank rather than using up a porter. Because at the moment, when you use Stone Spirits, it sort of doesn't work because you're using twice as many porters. It doesn't really work. And you fill up your bank twice as fast. You fill up your
no, the porter charges are not used with the Stone Spirits. You only use 1 charge, but you send 2 to your bank. So
yeah, but if it doesn't get used, then it still fills up your thing twice as fast.
Okay.
So they would just all automatically get ported.
I mean, yeah, to an extent, obviously the ore box goes to 120, but yeah.
At the moment, if you use Stone Spirits, you can only stay at the site for half as long. And we'll change that so that you can stay the same length of time. So it really is double.
I mean, if we look at, just from what I've seen, the Stone Spirits coming into the game, I mean, if we look at, you mentioned like changing drop tables. I mean, we did do that.
Yeah, we did. So what we're going to do is look at the so the first time round, we sort of took community sentiment, which are the problematic bosses, which ones need most fixing, had a look at changing some of those. And now we need to look back at the prices, because there's a lot of misinformation floating around as well about everyone's saying everything is worth 1 GP, but that's not true. So Mod Shogun's looking at data, basically, and trying to work out what the actual situation is, and whether there are some simple fixes, but then also some more complex fixes.
Awesome. All right. I think, well, let's do it. Can I get you 2 guys on the couch? Come join us. So we're going to get the R team to come on by. Yeah. Meanwhile, let's have a look. We have a Reeves pet now appearing in Yak Island, along with the magic cat that doesn't want to stay away. Context, if you don't know what Yak Island is, it's a place where your familiars are sent when they are sent away. So if you go to Artisan's Workshop, for example, it is sent when your familiars are hidden. They're sent to Yak Island. And at the moment, you can see there's a Reeves pet and a cat pet. And there's many more underneath that, I imagine. All right, have you guys...
Hello. Yep.
Good on awesome. All right, let's do this. So, without further ado, we have, on my right...
Oh, Mod Alec, lead character artist on RuneScape.
Mod Bakinga Z.
So, you've both obviously been involved in the Comp Cape Rework project. It has been quite extensive in regards to the art stuff, so...
Yeah, it's been interesting to try and get our heads around it, but yeah, thankfully I'm not modelling them, so we're all good, but... Yeah, I mean, there's been a fair amount of collaboration between these guys and the concept artists, and sort of making sure the designs are going to work technically from a modelling point of view as well. So, So I've got a bit of a croaky throat.
That's
so
fine.
Sorry about that.
All right, so, I mean, without further ado, should we just jump into this? Should we kick it up? All right,
Is it worth just noting what we're going to do with these? Right.
oh, yeah, by all means.
Right. So we're gonna show off the capes today, and then
It's exciting.
over the next whatever period of time, we're gonna take feedback from the players, and then once we have that feedback, we'll implement that into the concepts, and then we're gonna poll the final concepts. So there will be an in-game poll. We're gonna show off the tier 1 variations. So there's 3 variations of each tier 1 cape, apart from the lore cape, which is tier 3. There's gonna be 3 variations of that as well. And we'll end up polling them, so you can choose A, B, or C, whichever is your favorite.
So, quick TLDW, sorry, for Rubik. Well, even Rubik will do this, but anyway. So, straight up, we show today what we got.
Yep.
We get the feedback. We put in any feedback that we need to address if needs be.
Yep.
And then when we're happy, we'll poll options, we'll let players decide, and then go from there.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. All right, let's bring this up. What we got first? So, what we've got to do. All right, here we go. We have skilling capes. So, do you want to take us through this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, basically, I took inspiration. First of all, it was inspired by the Max Cape because that was the task. And I took inspiration from basically the butterfly's wings or peak of feathers. And just try to find a balance between fabric and trimmings to give a regal look to the skilling capes. And these are supposed to be the tier 1 of them. So
this is tier 1
Careful.
skilling cape.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
cool. Just thought I made that clear.
yeah.
Let us know whenever you want to go on to the next.
Yeah, the next one is just a better rendering of them. Yeah.
Give them a moment to spam the chat.
No, they'll do that. It's fine.
Yeah.
Goes on.
So yeah, it was a very tricky task because the players are very nostalgic, and also the teams have different opinion on them. So I had to take many feedback and go through many iterations to have these options basically. So yeah.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, you have to incorporate, of course, the legacy feel in regards to how players have perceived it, obviously based on the
Absolutely.
original Max
Yeah.
design, plus the many different opinions of people in the office, as is the way
Yeah,
it is.
exactly. Yeah. So I always have a look on Reddit or Twitter about the players, what they think about. I even asked a friend of mine, because he's a RuneScape player, what he was thinking about. So if he wanted something that could match his gear, or if he wanted something that stands out. And the answer was that he just goes around just naked with the boots, and so it was completely helpless.
So we have a fair amount of images to go through. So I mean, I think we're good to go. We're on to image number 3. Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So they have feral elements, but also I wanted to put there some ornaments to have a regal look to them. So there's a balance basically, and I wanted them to be bulky with a lot of fur, a lot of leather. Yeah, with the next image, probably you can understand better. Yeah.
Do you want to go on?
Yeah, basically, it's very different concept from the previous one, from the skilling cape. And so, yeah, they have a very different direction, but I think this one was easier in some ways, just because the concept behind it was easier to understand. So, yeah.
Cool. All right, let's go to the next one.
Yeah. So this one. So this is the 3rd tier of the lore cape, right? So I tried to.
Sorry, can I jump in? This is good. So what I've noticed from the chat, and see, I've just been looking at something. You guys have been giving your opinions on the combat and skilling cape, and remember, those are tier 1. So if some of you don't like it, that's a good thing because we've just shown you the first tier 3 and you guys love it. So I think we're kind of feeling the right thing here. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there.
Yeah. So basically, I try to interpret the previous tiers of the lore cape, trying to find the elements that I wanted to keep, because those ones are very, very old, and they have just those stickers on them, and they look awful. I'm sorry, but they look very awful. And so I try to use the symbol and use that as an inspiration for all the trimmings and the patterns inside. And even this one, after many iterations, finally I found at least these 3 options for now. So, yeah.
Also, and then they are obviously on the player model.
Yeah, better rendering.
So this is assuming Quest Cape is tier 1 and Master Quest Cape is tier 2.
Yeah, this is the tier 3 one. This comes
this will
above
be the-
Quest and Master Quest Cape.
Yeah, exactly.
Looks
so if you
absolutely
see,
beautiful.
yeah, of course, visual effects, some like you expected. Yeah.
Comp.
Comp Cape.
Tier 1, tier 2, tier 4,
Yeah.
what is this?
So
These are all tier 1.
These are all tier 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. So basically, the Comp Cape is a mix of everything. I try to incorporate everything basically inside, giving a hint of the lore, Quest point lore. I don't know how to call it, but yeah, the symbol inside, and with a lot of layering and many different materials inside. And so, yeah, if you see the next image, you can understand a little bit better. So different layers, and yeah, they are a bit chunky. Yeah, we wanted that. So
What I'm picking up from the chat is they don't seem to like brown very much.
wow, not.
I mean, this is the good thing. We
Well,
can
the Comp
get
Cape-
feedback from this. This is why we're doing
the
it.
Comp Cape is meant to be recolorable, of course. So if you go ahead, just yeah.
Whee! Yes.
Alex?
So these are, sorry,
No, by all
these
means.
are sort of displaying just the areas that you can recolor. I know you guys kind of like this color anyway, so I wouldn't recommend it. but-
It's locked to this.
Right, yeah, no, people think this is the actual color. Jeez, no. Right, these are indicated fields
This
so
is what-
you can recolor.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah,
This is what it looks like until you've done 4K Talos.
Yeah, so this has been sort of burning my retinas for the last few days. So these are just like templates showing so basically you get the 4 areas of recolor. So this shows the areas that can be recolorable across all the different types of capes. So,
Do you know how many choices of colour there'll be for each area?
there's just the one, so you'll have 4 recolors in total, but then that opens up to the players and they can choose all the existing.
Yeah.
So the
user stuff that-
HSL variations.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So that gives you an idea of like the flexibility of the areas of the designs that you can change for yourself.
Cool. Let's go to next one.
Yeah, some color examples.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what?
These are just examples.
Was there any reason for these colors, or were you just playing around and seeing what you could do, or?
Well, I like them. That's it.
I can tell. I mean, it looks
Yeah, I
superb.
tried different combinations. That's it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, just some illustrations of what you could do with
Yeah, exactly.
given
yeah.
the recolouring areas
Yeah.
that are there.
Is it still going to have the particles at the bottom? The white particles?
Well, if you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Oh my God. Okay. Yep. All right.
Yep.
I'm hyped.
Yeah. So we are trying. Well, we are still trying to understand what we can do with the visual effects, but we are trying to push the visual effects very further. So yeah, these are just examples how we want to treat the tier evolution from a visual
That right
point of
cape
view.
looks incredible. That effect is amazing.
Yeah.
So we have, just to clarify, skilling, far right is combat, presumably, and middle is comp.
Middle is comp, yeah.
Awesome. So this is the example, evolution.
We haven't yet got this working in game.
Yeah.
But I think it's safe to say the worst we can do is the current particles, right? So we can at least do the current
We
particles.
don't want that.
No,
Particles
so
are
we're hoping we can do a lot better, but at worst it will be exactly the same.
Yeah.
We can do a lot with animated textures and things as well.
Yeah,
so,
exactly, yeah.
We have started
we
to
need
do.
to experiment.
I mean, like the Nomad capes that we brought out in 2017, I want to say, where we had the skulls coming down the cape. I mean, there's just some
Yeah, that sort of
examples.
thing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely like exciting.
prettier.
I'm hyped to see what you guys are going to do. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sorry to butt in, but it's worth stating that this is just an example of what tier 2 and tier 3 might look like,
Okay.
where there will be small upgrades from tier 1, obviously. But like all of these particles aren't tied to the cape specifically; they can be transferred across the other capes. What I mean by that is the examples you see today.
You're reacting because my reaction.
Yes, yeah.
I
mean, so
We don't know what's on each cape.
yeah, basically that's just an example. So where people are in favor for combat cape A, B, or C, the particle itself can be.
Yeah.
We can do that ourselves when like if people finally vote for combat cape B, this might be.
Can I honestly say I've never, in the 3 years I've done streaming on the RuneScape channel, I've never seen the chat flip 180. I mean that, not in like any way apart from it's flipped dramatically.
All it takes is blood.
And I think we've done amazing because we kind of brought it up and they're like,
fluorescent
oh,
green.
this
You're like,
for tier 1.
See,
and then
Brown. Fluorescent green.
Yeah.
Brown.
now you can properly say it took blood, sweat, and
Oh, jeez.
tears.
But we still got more to show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm
That's
excited.
right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the surprise, basically.
Wow.
Everything is recolorable.
So all capes,
Yep.
as in skilling, combat, everything can be recolored.
Everything.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Nice.
So we are working very hard to obtain that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We should also reiterate that if you don't like any of this, the old capes will still be obtainable.
Yes.
So as in the comp, the trim,
Comp and the
NPC.
trimmed comp will still be obtainable in game as legacy items
Okay.
with the old requirements, and they won't change.
Yep.
And this is the new
Yep.
best.
So you can still wear that if you want to.
yeah,
That's
if you can get max post rework, you can get legacy comp and legacy trim post rework. You can get quest cape as part of tier 1 lore. You can get master quest cape as part of tier 2 lore, and then tier 3 lore, which we've shown up here, is actually recolorable.
I'm actually glad that you're allowing to get them.
Absolutely,
still.
right?
I think that's
Obviously, we want the new capes to be good. We want the new capes to be people something want, but some people prefer the older version just because it's the older version rather than because of the specific way it looks.
I'm so sorry, but when these capes come out, I'm going to choose the most ridiculous color scheme ever to go with my particles. So yeah, I'm so sorry for that. These look incredible though.
But I
seriously.
propose to create just a bad taste meter inside the game. So that's
You're in it.
I'll be right.
Style
I'll be
meter,
at the end of the scale. I feel for that one. Is there more? Is there more to show?
well, there's
But more to talk about.
So I mean, the same again, really. These are the templates to show you what can be recolorable for the skidding capes. Again, like we can kind of play around with these a bit, but these are the again, not final colours, but just showing you the areas that we're playing with that will be you can kind of customise for yourself. So.
So yeah, the colours indicate that each different HSL field that you can put in, right?
That's
so
it, yeah.
the green bit I can put in blue, and only the green then becomes blue, as
Yeah,
an example.
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of customizations to do that. It's hype. It's very exciting to say the very least. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome just seeing it all come together as well. It's very exciting. And obviously on the combat as well.
yeah.
Yes, I mean on the Comp Cape especially, and with some of the others, we wanted to have an area where we could go to town on the detail with the texturing and stuff, but still have like the kind of big areas for customization and recolors.
Because recoloring messes with the texturing, right?
That's right. So
You
I mean,
guys have-
so we can have like fairly simple texturing on recolorable areas, but ultimately it kind of starts to mess with the colours that you've chosen. So it's not staying faithful to the colour that you want, kind of thing. So we have to be fairly careful in just allowing recolors in kind of more simplistic areas for like big fabric areas and things like that. So whereas like this kind of shoulder mounts and stuff, we can kind of safely say like, okay, things like metal and stuff, maybe we don't want to recolor those areas as much. Skulls and things, to us it makes sense that you don't recolor those and keep those as like white skulls and things. So So we just kind of keep it to the more fabrics and gems and bits and pieces.
I want my skulls to be fluorescent green.
No.
You're ruining my fashion scheme.
Don't put that out there.
And I mean,
They were thinking.
this is the fascinating one for me, because we all know lore in RuneScape thematically is that blue color, the blue cyan-esque color. Seeing the variations that are going to come out of the lore cape is going to be very interesting, but I think a little scary at the same time. So seeing the color variations is going to be pretty crazy. So yeah, looking forward to it. And again, just to reiterate, for people who may not have realized, those colors are not the actual colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the colors to distinguish the custom colors that you yourself can put in. I cannot make that clear enough.
Yeah. And yeah, that's all.
Man, that's hype. Honestly, that is so exciting. I'd be rocking the bottom right cape, I'll tell you that much. Look at those colors, they're beautiful.
That sort of orange and greeny one.
But yeah, we really sort of welcome any feedback and stuff. So we're kind of still in development with this. So we kind of want to hear ideas. Obviously, there's loads going on right now. So yeah, we'll obviously take everything on board.
We're gonna take feedback on the designs,
Yep.
tweak the designs, then poll the designs.
Yeah.
So they will go to a poll, or poll for each category. So it'll be which combat cape do you want, which skilling cape do you want.
Which capes do you guys like the most out of them, out of curiosity? And for the people in chat as well.
How are they supposed to answer that? It'll just be like
They'll just
number-
go, let's go in number order. Top left is one, bottom right is whatever the last number is out of all of them.
System's too complicated.
Well, just choose one. Just choose one.
That one.
I know which one you're pointing to. Clearly pointing to the middle cape there, the purple.
The second from the left on the middle row. There we go.
Yeah, I
beautiful,
might have overcomplicated that one a little bit. But honestly, I think it's crazy how much variation you can get out of a cape when it can be recolored. Like when you put up the base design, it's like because you're locked to that color. I have to thematically design my outfit around this color. But when you have a recolor, you can then go around it however you want.
You're right, Shawnee. It is crazy. You try making it. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So actually, while we've got the time, how do you get into making that? How do you make that? If you're able to give us a little insight into that.
So with our current sort of tech, with the recolor wearers, we actually have to kind of poly model each area. And so that kind of relies on the poly color rather than a textured color as such. So that's why we have to keep the big recolor wearers very relatively kind of basic. And we have to think in terms of like poly counts, how many bits of geometry we have, because the more is obviously more expensive for the game. So we have kind of caps on those. So that's where we have to go backwards and forwards with the design and make sure it's working with those kind of limits as well. So, but with these, we kind of start with a template, and then we've got a couple of extra models that we add on top to change the silhouette and stuff. And we'll take these through like a sculpting pass, which is like a high detail version, and then create the texture from that. So I'm going a bit too.
No, it's fine. I mean, we have time. I was just genuinely fascinated in how it goes into it. So that's awesome. Is it possible to, just going off questions from the chat now, is it possible to allow us to customize the colors in RGB instead of HSL?
I don't know if anybody on this couch can.
I mean, it would be a question for upstairs, I imagine.
Yeah, I think
just
that's
to try
something
and
for our devs
ask-
to understand. Currently, we've plugged into the HSL system, so these
So the same as Max and Comp.
these capes will basically use the exact same system, the same interface as Max and Comp and Trim Comp use right now. If we can change that to RGB or not, I have no idea.
I think the two, you can just convert between the two, can't you?
As I say, I'm not sure in terms of how they're coded.
Tech team, I think.
Oh, it's RGBA, isn't it?
The Avatar uses RGB, I believe, if I remember correctly. But anyway, is it possible? I'm going to read this question. I don't know why it's been put in because it's quite a hilarious question. But can you recolor the cape with dyes? I don't know why someone's asked that question or why it's in the pod here. But
I mean, that would limit you.
I mean, it really
I don't think so.
what? What's the plan for cape emotes?
I think we don't have time to do it.
Yeah, I don't think so. They're really expensive in animation.
Yeah, that there's a lot of
limited with animation.
yeah. There's a lot to animate with the emotes, and we don't have that time right now to put emotes on them.
Yeah, I think the cape emotes are one of the worst like return on investments we have. Like because everyone goes, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah,
when it comes out, like, "Oh, that's cool," and then
Yeah, I think I get my skill. Like when I got my Comp Cape, I used it once and never seen it again.
Is it possible to recolor particles?
We asked recently. We asked the tech team. Mod Doctor asked if it was possible, and the tech team said we can. It's low priority, but if you're requesting it, we can get to it. So what?
So
that means
maybe
for
in
them-
practice that's probably a no before we say that.
Yeah, I mean they've got mobile and stuff
They've got
as well,
so
right?
much
Like
backup, yeah.
they're currently on mobile. There's a few things for art that they're doing, so I don't know if recolorable particles.
We would also like to take the particle system further than where it currently is, so that's like a whole different level of rework there. So we kind of would like to invest the time into that rather than reworking what we currently have, which is very limiting. So it's all what's the higher priority.
Is it possible to toggle particles between capes, as in have particles from one cape and put it on another?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
We kind of.
It has to be a separate. It'd be a separate model,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you accommodate for all the different variations, yeah, it's going to be.
And we
a pain.
kind of, I mean, so you've got the recolors, and we kind of want to be able to keep that kind of identity to certain capes. Otherwise, everything's just going to really feel a bit of a mishmash kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we do want to kind of keep some sort of identity to each kind of each cape as much as we can.
Cool. Is there ability to turn particles off on the cape if you have them at all? Is that possible?
That's probably a similar question, really.
It would be a separate cape, technically, I think.
Yeah, it would, because you'd have it without the trail, right? Presumably.
I think it's theoretically possible. That doesn't mean it's a good idea, if that makes sense.
And extra time to do the configs. And
Not
everything
not
else.
just the time, but also just the
Yeah,
complexity.
no, the config, right?
Yeah.
So,
And we're kind of thinking that's the main thing that's going to differentiate them between the upper and the lower versions. So I'm not sure why you want that, but hey,
Make your tier 3 cape look like a tier 1 cape.
yeah.
You could just wear the
Or
tier
just
1
wear the
cape.
tier 1
Yeah, I mean that's if so this isn't finally decided, but if it's tier 1 no particles, tier 2 particles, tier 3 super fancy particles, then yes, you can turn off your particles by just electing to wear the tier 1 instead.
would the max cape, is the max cape just staying as it is with this update?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not touching any of the-
We in an earlier version of design it was the skills tier 1 cape, and we changed that. So max cape is just its own thing.
Yeah, we got feedback not to change those or remove those. So
Yeah, which is why skilling tier 1 exists as a separate cape.
Yeah.
I mean they're similar conceptually, right? But they're technically separate.
Oh man, it feels so exciting to finally show you guys, the stuff, the capes. I don't know, there's something quite amazing about it, to say the very least. Okay, so before we wrap up, just a couple of things I want to mention before we end it. Of course, we have the Easter event in-game right now. Anything you purchase in-game with your rune coins and stuff like that will go straight to the charities that we're supporting, CPSL Mind and Princess Trust. So please do, if you have a bit of spare money, to do that, because they're amazing charities, and they've been. It's amazing to support them, to say the very least, so it's pretty awesome. And apart from that, we're going to end it on a video. Back in 2007, Christmas 2017, RuneScape had the opportunity to have its main theme, as in the login theme you hear, composed by a BAFTA award-winning composer, which is James Hannigan, and this was recorded with the Philharmonica Orchestra. Words at the Abbey Road. What?
the Philharmonic.
I'm trying. Whatever. Harmonica. Yes, I did say harmonica.
So close.
The Royal Philharmonic. No, I can't say it now.
We're not going to do.
Anyway, and whoever's on the PCs upstairs is bolding the word on my iPad. I appreciate that. Anyway,
It's being bolded in real time. Look at that.
Anyway, so yeah, it was an amazing experience, and we finally had the opportunity to upload this video, and it's an absolutely amazing one. So we're going to play this video to wrap up. Apart from that, please keep giving us your feedback for the Comp Cape Rework. We've had the designs being shown today. As a reminder, we're going to be looking at your feedback from the designs we've shown, refining them, showing them again, and then putting them out to you to vote on, and that will decide what we go with for the update. So it's very exciting. There's a lot going on. And we're going to get ready to end the stream before I get laughed at anymore. So yes, enjoy the video, and as always, take care and have a good one.